Hello everyone, in this video I am going to explain about the flow of energy in an ecosystem. So we all know that energy enters into the ecosystem from the sun. Sun is an ultimate source of energy, and basically the solar radiations that comes from the sun passes through basically the atmosphere, and most of these radiations are absorbed by the earth surface, which helps in the process of photosynthesis also, and sometimes it also helps in the maintaining the temperature that is basically suitable for any living beings to survive on the surface of the earth. Now if you estimate the energy level of any organism, we can find the value or we can find the energy level. So first of all we need to understand that 1000 kilograms of plant material is converted into 100 grams of herbivore tissue that is used as a food. Now these convert into 10 kilograms of carnivore tissue and 1 kg of second level carnivore tissue. So here we are able to see that 1000 gram of plant tissue is converted into 100 kg of herbivorous tissue. So the plants has the more energy as compared to any human or any other organism that is the primary or the secondary or the tertiary consumers. In the case of carnivorous tissue, we are able to see here that the 10 kg of carnivorous tissue is converted to 1 kg of second carnivorous tissue. That means the energy level of this carnivorous tissue have very much less as compared to the plant tissues. So we can therefore conclude this by saying the maximum number or the maximum energy is present in the plants, that is followed by the herbivores, then the carnivores. Hence we can also say that the top predators of a tertiary consumers has the least energy, or we can say the tertiary consumers, basically the tertiary consumers has the least amount of energy. And these all things, all graphs have been representation of this energy graph that is happening in the exchange of an ecosystem is known as basically by the term that is pyramid of energy. So pyramid of energy we can define by the graphical representation of any energy exchange between the ecosystem, that is basically in the food chain of an organism, is known by the pyramid of energy. Now the second term, that is the biomagnification. So we all know that a larger amount of pesticides are used for the accumulation in the top carnivores. We all know that the crops are grown by the use of different types of fertilizers and pesticides that is very harmful for the crops and the human health also. Now we will understand that how they affect the crops or the food chain. So a large number of pesticides and chemicals are used to protect the crops from several pests and diseases. So basically these pests reaches the soil surface or because of the rain, or we can also add these pesticides in the form of water into the crops, and they are absorbed by the plants along with the water and the mineral from the soil. So due to rain, these chemicals enter into the water sources and body of the aquatic plants and animals. So this is how we can say that the chemicals enters into the food chain. Now since this chemical cannot decompose, they basically starts accumulate continuously at each trophic level, or we can say as the food chain proceeds, starts from the down to the that means the from the producer to the primary, then the secondary, then the tertiary. As the trophic level increases, the maximum the concentration is among the top carnivores is also increasing. So the increase in basically the concentration of the pollutant or the harmful chemicals with each step of the trophic level of a food chain is termed as a biomagnification. Basically we can also define the biomagnification by the terms that the several chemicals and the pesticides are used in the crops that enters into the food chain of a plant, and from plant we all get the food. So we are also affected by the plant's food. We also get the harmful effect of the pesticides inside our body. So this is the term that is the biomagnification means. Now the next term, that is the environment or and organism. So how the organism are dependent or related with environment. So we all know that ecology is basically a term that deals with the interaction among the environment or the different organism. So here the environment of an organism can be subdivided or divided into two factors. The first one is abiotic factors and the second one is biotic factor. Basically we are going to talk about the abiotic factor in this video. that is basically divided into four types: temperature, water, soil and light. In temperature, we can also say that it is the one of the most relevant abiotic factor, or since all the organism requires a optimum temperature for their survival or their for body functioning. So depending on their ability to tolerate the temperature range, these are subdivided into two parts or two types. The first one is stenothermal and the second one is eurothermal. Stenothermal means that any organism that can restricted to a narrow range of temperature. That means they have the limited capacity to survive into that wide temperature. So another one, that is the eurothermal, is basically the organism that can tolerate a wide range of temperature. They can also live in the high temperature region. So these organisms are termed as a eurothermal. Like that only, the second factor, that is the water, a abiotic factor that affects the organism. So water is also a major influencing factors. We all know that life on the earth is impossible without water, as it forms the major constituent of the living cells that is required for our body. So in oceans where quantity of water is not a limitation, the quantity of water becomes once, and these depending on the ability to tolerate the salinity. Here the salinity terms means the number of minerals, or we can say the salt that is present in the ocean. So some organism can tolerate this salinity, but some organism can't tolerate or can't have the capacity to take the saline water. So the organism can also divide it into two parts from this water salinity. That is, the first one is a stenohaline. These stenohalines organism have the restricted to narrow range of the salinity, and the eurohaline, these organism has the capacity to tolerate a wider range of the salinity. So like temperature also, water have also two types of organism that can tolerate a high number or a high amount of salinity in water, and a low limited range of salinity in water. Now the third factor, that is the soil. Here the nature and the composition of soil also differs from place to place. We all know that the different place or the different regions have the different types of soils depending upon the climate also, and sometimes the weathering process that occurs from the breaking down of the hard rocks by the process of weather. So the soil development method, or we can say the characteristics features of the soil composition, also determines the native of the organism it can support. Like the soil have the tendency to grow the hard amount of grains, or we can say if soil doesn't have too much humus, then it will not able to produce a high amount of yield or crops on that field. So soil is very important for the crop. Now the fourth reason or the fourth factors, abiotic factor that affect the organism, or that is the light. We all know that the major source of light on the earth is the sun, and light is also essential for the plants to perform the photosynthesis. And sometimes the certain plants becomes adapted to perform photosynthesis under very low light. We have also studied in this photosynthesis chapter that they are constantly overshadowed by the tall trees, and many plants also depends on the light for their flowering. So the availability of the light on the land is comparatively higher than that in water. So light is basically a source of energy that comes from the sun, and that is responsible for the process of photosynthesis in plants. And we organism also need light for the several things in the form of energy also. In if the light is present, then we will able to see the objects around us. So light is basically the another important factor that affect in organism. So this was about the flow of energy in a ecosystem, and the biomagnification and environment or an organism. Now in the next video we will understand about the components of forest. So till then, thanks for watching.